Well, welcome, John and Irene. If I understand correctly, Irene, you have filed a harassment complaint
Yes,
against Professor Brown, and that John, both you and Irene have had separate meetings with the academic vice president, who has suggested that you mediate this issue, on the understanding, of course, that this is voluntary, and that any agreements you reach must be mutual agreements, and that if you don't reach an agreement, you can, of course, proceed on with the normal academic process for dealing with these matters. But my sense is that you'd both like to get this settled in a way that's acceptable to each of you. So let me ask you, John, if you could tell me what's the basis for this?
Well, I really don't know what the basis is. The whole thing's a bunch of unfounded nonsense that I really don't know why we're here, but it's putting me in just an awful situation, some wild allegations being made.
Yeah.
And so I think you'd be best to ask
one of those crazy women.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Poor victim of some loony single mum.
Irene, tell me, what's the basis for the allegation?
A lot of paranoia, I think, John. A lot of paranoia.
No, John, hold it just one second, okay? Let's not describe what each other does. Let's try to get into the facts. And Irene, tell me, what's happening?
I'm a mature student in the environment faculty, and I'm in a special program that Professor Brown heads, and it's really to offer special services so that older people like myself who have families are able to go back to school, and we get a little bit extra help and some concessions around classes and homework. And initially, Professor Brown was extremely helpful and attentive, and I was very grateful. This is very, very important to me. I have 3 children. I have no family to support me, and either emotionally or financially, so that I worked very, very hard, and I'm so afraid that all of this is going to be jeopardized, all my dreams, all my children's dreams. Because of this whole I'll say affair, because that's what it feels like. The attention went from checking in with me about assignments, initially just in the hall after class, to being invited back to his office, where I wasn't really sure why. Why do I have to go back to his office to talk about these things? And he would close the door and sit down beside me, on this little love seat he has, and sort of put his hand on my knee and say, how's it going? And is there anything I can do? And I'm thinking, well, this doesn't feel right. But I didn't want to say anything because I need his help. He's very bright, and the help that I get is done a lot for me. But then it turned into, let's go for a coffee to talk about these things, and then let's go to lunch. And I try to come up with a lot of different excuses, but then I started to feel like, I can't, if I keep saying no, he's going to get put off, and maybe he'll pull back his help. And and then though, when it came down to dinner, taking me out to dinner, and then moving to touching me, and that was it. I thought, no, you're not crazy. This man is abusing his position, and I got to stop it, because otherwise I'm going to end up throwing it all away. And for what? For somebody who can't, who's so inappropriate?
Well, let me understand, Irene, if I could. You're in the program as a mature student.
That's correct.
That this program, part of it has been designed specifically for people in your situation.
Yes, that's right.
I designed this program for people.
Oh, well, so that should give you all kinds of liberties.
Okay. And that you've noticed when you first joined the program that John was very helpful to you as an academic.
Yes.
And then you were at times invited back to the office to discuss, and there you sat on a love seat, did you say? Is that what, a two-seating couch?
It's a couch.
A two-seat couch?
Just a regular couch.
Couch? Okay.
It's a 2-seater couch.
So
not a lot of room.
Okay. So you sat on the couch, and whilst discussing matters, John would put his hand on your knee?
Yeah, I mean, asking me things, how is it going? Are you able to manage? It must be so burdensome having children to look after. And I thought, why, that was too personal for me. But that's, I don't want to talk about those things with you.
Okay. All right. So you need more clear boundaries about the kinds of things to be talked about.
Absolutely. I just want to go to school. I want to get my degree.
And then you said that John invited you for lunch.
Yes.
And then for dinner.
And then for dinner.
And that there was any other activity?
No, that was it. That was when, and then after that, after going out to dinner, there was one incident where he was touching me, and that's when I launched the complaint.
I'll get to you just in 1 second,
Yes.
John. Let me clarify one thing. When you say touching you, what does that mean?
Well, it was, first of all, started with the hand on the knee, and that didn't feel right to me, but I thought, okay, just don't let this get in the way. But then he started putting his arm around my shoulder when he would sit down beside me, or, you know, sort of rubbing the side of my arm. I mean, my friends don't do that.
Okay. All right.
And I don't even know this person, and I never invited him into my life, other than academically. He just pushed his way in.
Okay. All right. I think I have a good understanding of that then, Irene. Thank you. John, what's your sense of all this?
Well, my sense is she's absolutely paranoid. I mean, we have to understand that this is a special
excuse
program.
me, but don't describe what you think she thinks, because that is not helpful to me. What would be helpful for me to understand how you've seen the relationship develop over the 6 months.
She's just misinterpreting everything that takes place. That's the problem.
Okay, that's something that Irene did. How do you see this relationship?
I helped establish this particular program in the Department of the Environment for students like Irene who are somewhat disadvantaged. They've got children and other commitments. They can't come full time, and so they come in on a part-time basis, but obviously they had to keep up with the other students, and so it requires putting additional work and time in, which I'm quite prepared to commit, and there's several of them in the program. They come back to my office after classes and things. We go over their assignments, we spend time with them, and that's absolutely all there is to it, is to try and help now. Some of the students I've taken out to lunch from time to time. Some of them I've invited out to dinner. Rather than just sit in the office, we've gone and discussed a paper or a project over a dinner or something of that nature, or a coffee, whatever it might be. No indication from Irene that was any problem to her. I don't know what she's talking about.
What am I going to say?
Touching. I've never touched a knee that I know about.
Well, you know what? If you're going to lie, we're not going to get anywhere.
I come from a background where we're perhaps more expressive. I grew up in Montreal, and we use our hands a lot more, and sometimes I touch a student like that, but you can see her reaction here. I've never seen a reaction like that before. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more to it than that. But I'm very concerned about this kind of stuff, because you see, it puts me in a very difficult situation with the university.
It's all about you, isn't it? No thought about what it did to me.
Allegation going on. I'm a happily married man. I don't need this kind of
that's
wild
not what
allegation.
the word is. You're happily married, but I don't care about that. Let
me ask you, Irene. You've now been in the program for a while, and you've had these experiences. And how do you think other people in similar situations to yourself in the class experience it?
Experience Professor Brown?
Yeah.
Well, he's much more detached. There are other women, mature women in this program. He is much more detached. To my knowledge, they have never been out to lunch or to dinner with him.
Well,
yes, they have gone back to his office.
You just don't know.
I've talked to them about this. I had to go and to talk to somebody to see, am I crazy or what? Is this me? Do you think I'm being paranoid? Of course I thought I was the one who was paranoid. And the way he acts, it just increases that.
Okay.
I feel like I'm getting dumped on, and I'm the one who I'm the one who's been hurt.
Okay. So your sense is that the relationship with John and yourself is different from the relationship that he has with the other students.
See it. Other students have commented on it.
Okay.
Very snide.
Okay.
Very lewd comments. It's also affected my relationships with my fellow students.
Okay. All right. Okay. John, in all of these disputes, there are always two perceptions, right? And sometimes it is that we're not clear where each of us draws lines about what may or may not happen. In your sense, as you review the development of the relationship with yourself and Irene, in reviewing that now, are there things that you would change?
Well, yes, I don't think I ever want to be anywhere alone with her again with these kind of wild
So it's
allegations.
me still.
I mean, I've got to be very careful about this.
Not him.
It makes it very difficult for her to continue in the program and then this kind of...
See, that's the sort of subtle threats.
Because, I mean, she needs extra help, and I'm not inclined to sort of spend that time with her alone anymore.
So because I brought this complaint now, I don't get the extra help.
See, I sat here just now and listened to her, and I'm trying to explain, and she doesn't want to. She's off on this wild tangent again. What I'm trying to say is that it takes some private tuition for her to be able to maintain a position in this program and to keep up with the work. I'm very, very worried about these kind of allegations being made when there's no substance to them.
Do you provide this private tuition to the other students?
Oh yes, the other mature students who just come part-time, they all get the private tuition. That's the purpose of the program.
Okay. So one of the issues then that we need to really sort out is how to be able to maintain the academic relationship between you.
Well, I don't know whether we can.
But to have some clearer
boundaries. I don't know whether it can work. Because, I mean, I'm very...
I'm not sure you have a choice.
Well, I don't know that I can continue with somebody who makes these... There'd have to be an independent third party there all the time to monitor it.
Fine. I think it'd be a lot safer.
You may well set it up in that way. You may well set it up, decide that that's the best way to have it so that there's no misunderstanding on anybody's part. Irene, I think you would feel safer and more comfortable in that situation, right?
Yeah.
And you'd feel safer and more comfortable in that situation.
I'm not leaving this program.
So the question is, you're not leaving this program.
No.
You're not leaving this program.
No.
And I assume, therefore, that the task today is to find out a way that you can both stay in the program and maintain a good academic relationship and to clarify what the boundaries are so that you're not uncomfortable and you're not subject to charges.
Well,
I just want to be able to continue and to graduate, and I don't want to feel like I'm compromised now in the faculty. I don't want him to take it out on me. I mean, that's another genuine concern, that he's not going to give me the help I need, or he's going to penalize me in my grades.
Okay.
And especially with these sarcastic remarks or talk about me with
would
other
you
professors.
want somebody around like this is making these kind of allegations
Hey,
against
you could, you know what? You couldn't have me around enough before.
And you're going to try and work with somebody like this?
Now he doesn't want me
around. It makes it extremely difficult to continue to work together.
No, you don't want me around on my terms. You want me around on your terms, as long as you're pulling the strings. As long as you can say, we're going to lunch, we're going to dinner.
My assumption is that you should both be around on normal terms.
Well, I've no difficulty with that. That's what I thought we've been doing all along, you know. And so she's dreaming into
So he doesn't even know what's inappropriate behavior.
All kinds of wonderful things that she thinks that don't exist at all.
Well, they weren't wonderful, just for your information. That's not my idea of a wonderful thing. Having you put your big fat hand on my knee.
I've never put my hand on
Okay, so let's look at some of the things that clearly should not happen, where we should draw some clear boundary lines. No physical contact. Right?
Absolutely.
Does that seem right, John?
Oh, that's fine by me.
Okay. No physical contact. Number one. No lunches. No dinners.
No friendship.
I never asked for your friendship.
No, other than academic friendship, no friendship.
Cooperation is different.
That is to be able to distinguish between having an academic relationship and a social relationship.
I don't think you know the difference.
Let John speak for himself.
Well, I've always had a friendly relationship with all my students. I've always expressed an interest in their general well-being, make them feel comfortable and welcome in the university. And I've never, in all the years, the 20 years I've been at the university, had anything like this ever arisen.
Nobody ever complained.
They didn't have any need to complain.
In life, each of us has different boundaries about what's comfortable and uncomfortable, right? And some people have a boundary here, some people have a boundary here. And one of the tasks, it always seems to me, of the person in the power position is to understand that the boundaries are set by the others. Now, sometimes hard for us, and as you know, I taught for many years at the university, sometimes hard for us in a power position of faculty to recognize that the boundaries should be set always by the most conservative person. And I'm sensing here that one of the things that's gone on is that Irene, you have one set of boundaries, and John, you have another set. And they've been crossed. And in crossing those two boundaries, you have become very uncomfortable. And that discomfort is interfering with your academic goals.
Absolutely.
And your ability to pursue the academic goals.
The what troubles me, she's
Now,
suggesting far more into it than
okay,
place.
but John, having that now happen, you're uncomfortable. The Vice President for Academic Affairs knows about this, right? At this moment now, it's not a public matter.
No, but they're
But
talking
it
about
could
a hearing.
become,
They're talking about a
precisely, it could become a public matter. And so that if you hold on to a position that only you decide, then it may well go to the next level. And my sense is that you would both like to come out of this with a clear set of boundaries, an understanding of how to respect those boundaries, on the one hand, and maintaining a good academic relationship in the future, so that you can be the best professor you want to be.
Well, the
and
best
you can be
boundary
the
would
best
be if she just
graduate
goes into
student
another
that you want to
program,
be.
wouldn't it? If she went to another program, we wouldn't have any more
So it's
problems.
my fault. I
Well,
don't
it
know.
would be equally true that it could be solved if you left.
Exactly.
But you're not
and
going to
I'm
leave.
prepared to go to the limit with this because I have more riding on this.
Neither of you are going to
But
leave.
there are other students who want to stay in the program with me, so if I
And you
left,
can
they would all suffer.
You can have a relationship with them based on their boundaries that may be different from the relationship you have with Irene based on her boundaries. That's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to have different boundaries and different relationships with different people. But that to be able to respect and understand that when we cross somebody else's boundaries, particularly when we're in the power position, that unfortunately it makes them, it discombobulates them in many, many ways. And my sense here is that it is a boundary issue. Let me be very, very clear. Beyond the touching or putting the arm, has there been any other activity?
No. I
Well,
just
there you go. See, there isn't.
because I put a stop to it.
Well, because if it
I
were,
made a complaint.
if there were more to it, that would be a very different ballgame. It wouldn't be discussing the boundary
She
issues.
thinks there might have been more, that's what she's saying, but there's never been anything to suggest that there's
Okay.
anything more to this.
The question for
You're
you,
right.
John, is, can you reconstruct your relationship with Irene around some boundaries that are different?
Well, it depends what those boundaries are, I suppose.
Okay. Well, let's
Everything on his terms.
Well,
He
let's
defines the problem. He
set,
gets to
set,
say,
set the boundaries.
I want just a strictly professional academic
Then
relationship.
if you get invited for lunch, you say no.
Just 1 second, John.
Well, you know what?
Just
It's
1
nice to know that I
second.
have permission to say no, because I
Okay.
didn't feel like I had permission to say no. I never got the opportunity to even entertain that possibility.
Irene, as part of the boundary.
Sometimes you did
do you
say
want,
no.
By way of the
You
boundary,
didn't take a hint.
do you want the boundary to be that you are not invited?
No
Or
lunches.
do you want the boundary to be a clear understanding that you have the right to say no?
No, I just don't. I don't want any.
Any, okay.
No socializing
Okay,
at all.
so boundary number 1 is no touching. Boundary number 2 is no lunch or
No
supper.
invitations.
No invitations. Okay. What other boundaries?
Just that we meet during regular academic hours, whether it be in the morning, during normal hours, not before everybody else gets there, or after everybody else has gone home. We meet at a normal time to discuss whatever papers, whatever academic issues that I have.
Hey, forgive me, because I don't understand what normal time is
Well,
in
I
this
guess
context.
Generally between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock, rather than coming in before everyone else arrives.
So all your classes are daytime classes?
Yes, that's
oh,
correct.
Okay. I had assumed in a program that you might have evening classes.
I've been fortunate to be able to keep it in the day.
So that academic appointments between yourself and the professor would be during the day.
That's right.
Approximately 10 to 4 from 10 to
Yes,
5.
that's right, yeah.
What she completely overlooks, the purpose of the program is that I'm putting extra time in to help these special students, and that throughout the day I don't have time to put that time in. I have to put it in outside normal hours. That's the only time I can do it.
So you may have to negotiate that, or you may have to sense that what time you have during the day would have to be allocated to Irene in terms of respecting those boundaries.
Well, there isn't any more time in the day. That's the problem.
Okay.
See, so if I get to put extra time in, which
Okay,
I
so
do out of my own
let's-
good heart
let's-
to help
let's-
these students,
let's-
I have to
okay.
do it
That's your job
after
to
normal
help
hours.
us. I'm sorry, it's not entirely out of your
Let's-
good heart.
Let's backtrack for a moment now. We agree no physical contact.
Yeah.
We agree no lunches, and we agree no suppers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, we've got a problem around when you can do academic counseling, right?
Or I'll meet with another mature student. We can meet together. If it's absolutely impossible to meet during the day,
Okay.
I'll meet with one of the other mature students. He can entertain our questions at the
Both
same
of
time.
you, and you could both learn, I presume, from each other. Okay.
Mhm.
Is that
Oh, that's fine. I don't want to see her ever one-on-one again, because it's just impossible for me to cope with these kind of wild allegations that come out of that.
Well, it is possible, John, if we recognize that different people need different relationships.
Oh, if there's somebody else there, then that's fine.
He doesn't even respect the fact that I feel hurt by this. I still get the feeling that, I still am the crazy person. I'm still the one where it was all in my mind.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, because that's where it
He
is.
takes no responsibility at all.
No.
And I don't want this discussed with anybody else. I don't want him talking to other professors about this. I don't want him sort of saying, watch out for that one. I don't want a reputation.
I assume that goes for both of you.
Yeah,
I assume that,
that's-
that what we talk about
Mhm.
here is going to be confidential to both of you, and that you're both going to have enough savvy not to allow it to leak
Well,
out
of course,
all
there's
over the
rumours
place.
all over the place. She's already talked to other students.
Hey,
it's out of
they're the ones who
faculty.
brought it up. You were the one who was leering.
Let me come
You,
back.
you
There's
made
already
it
people-
public.
Oh, people already know she's made these allegations.
Let me come back to a fundamental issue here. It's a fundamental issue. I think we all recognize that part of the problem that's existed here is that you don't like to have a relationship that you perceive to be a professional one to include touching or to include out of normal hour relationship interaction, dinners, lunches, etc. You, John, feel that's okay, and in fact with some other students you have lunch with them.
I've always been friendly with all my students over
Okay.
the years.
Now, the fundamental issue is can you accept Irene's right to draw those boundaries for herself, to what's comfortable for her? Does she have that right to do
She
that?
certainly does, if she wants to.
Do you accept then that if you inadvertently cross those boundaries, that would upset her?
Well, I suppose it would upset her, but then she should establish those boundaries, which
Okay.
she hasn't done up to now,
Okay.
and she's just gone straight off on a tangent without
Okay.
establishing.
Then-
That's my
I never had a
concern.
chance to
My
establish
concern is that
anything.
if we continue this relationship,
There's no relationship to continue.
she's going to go off again on another tangent somewhere, and so that really concerns me.
Let's-
I want
let's
to put
go
this
to
thing to
mo-
rest once and for all.
Okay, let's
You're
then
the
go.
injured one again.
Let's then go to my next point, which is, if you inadvertently cross those boundaries, partly because you didn't know that they existed, and that's always a problem when there's a relationship of a more powerful person and a less powerful
Because
person.
I'm concerned about fabrication.
But let
too.
me just generate this other part. Can you see that it would be appropriate to express your concern of having done that inadvertently?
In what way? How do you mean?
Do you think, given those facts, if those arguments are correct about the boundaries, etc., that it would be appropriate to apologize for inadvertently crossing those boundaries?
Well, apology is an issue, but I can certainly acceptance. If she's got boundaries that are valid and she feels they've been crossed, I can accept that there's a certain element of regret if I've gone, that I've offended her unintentionally. I could probably deal with something of that nature.
Would it be possible for you to say that directly to Irene rather than to me?
I suppose so. I mean, if you've got boundaries that I don't know about and I've crossed them, I got a certain sense of regret that you feel that way, but
No buts, no conditions. Hold it, John, right there. Irene, if in the future there is no physical contact, no lunches or dinners, etc., and that if there is a need for academic consultations, that another student would participate in those consultations, and you could benefit academically from that third mind in the room. And given John's regret for having what has happened, how comfortable are you now about being able to move on with your academic career?
I'm much more comfortable, and that means a lot to me to have him say that, you know, he was responsible, or to take some responsibility in some way, and so that, you know, I don't feel like I'm just the nut, and to know that at some level he respects me as a person and my right to move, you know, just move through the world, my world, as best I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that I do respect him as an academic a great deal, and I don't want to lose what I have.
Mm-hmm.
But it means a lot to hear that he, I guess in his way, is sorry. I don't know. That's what I choose to hear this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. It was very courageous of you to take the action that you did. It's very difficult for both of you because this is a sort of a general gray area, but it's something that we're becoming increasingly aware of, and it's not always a question of right or wrong in absolute terms, but it's a question of being able to recognize the boundaries that each of us sets and to be able to deal with those. And in this particular case, it wasn't really easily possible for either of you to deal with those in that way. John, if we have this agreement, could we...
That is there going to be a third person present, is that what you mean? That agreement?
Well, the agreement would be no physical contact, no lunch invitations or dinner invitations, and that when an academic consultation is required outside of the normal hours, that another student would participate. And we would arrange that not specifically that there has to be a monitor, but that in fact it would be a three-person consultation, and the ideas to bounce ideas around.
Well, that might be problematical because sometimes we have to address a particular assignment that one student's doing.
Yeah.
But I need an independent objective and an independent witness present to make sure that there's no suggestions as such as have been made here of improper things taking place.
My sense
I must
is that
protect myself now.
My sense is that you don't need an independent person to know how to behave appropriately.
No, I don't need that, but I need to make
That's
sure
right.
that if there are any more wild allegations made, that it can be readily seen that they're unfounded.
Yeah. But I think you've not heard what Irene just said to you.
Oh, perhaps I didn't.
I don't feel like you didn't either.
Well, perhaps you'd like to say it again?
I thought that you were acknowledging my right to put some boundaries and that around our relationship, and to be able to still have a relationship with you in an academic way, and that you are important to me in that way. And but when you say things like wild allegations, you know, that's just sort of make my stomach sink, because, you know, to me they're not wild allegations. That makes me think that
Well, I
I'm
accept
lying.
that you have boundaries that I wasn't aware about, and I've
Well,
told you.
don't call them wild allegations.
I regret
then.
that I crossed some of them, but I don't agree that some of the things that you say took place. I don't ever recall having put my hand on your knee, for instance, you see, and so I call that a wild allegation that you make something out of.
Well, you're the one who said that you unconsciously touch everybody. So how would you even remember? If you think you have the right to unconsciously fling your hands about, how would you remember? That doesn't make me a liar. That you don't remember doesn't make me a liar.
If I don't know what the incident was, or when, or where, or anything, how can I deal with it? See, that's why I need the independent person there to make sure that...
John, you have a problem in the sense that I think we all recognize this boundary issue. We all recognize that the boundary's been crossed. And I think we're also recognizing it was inadvertently crossed. And in a sense, I think that what Irene is saying
Don't
is
you
that
recognize that now?
that she's nodding her head if you watch what
Are you
she's
saying
doing. That she recognizes that you've inadvertently crossed the boundary. Now, it seems to me if we're going to get a resolution, it also has to be an equal recognition that her feelings about the invasion of her boundary were legitimate feelings, and that those are things that you would not have wanted to have done to her had you known that doing those things in this situation would have been uncomfortable.
Of course I wouldn't. It goes without saying, of course I wouldn't have wanted to upset her. I had no cause. It was done entirely out of friendship, anything that I did. So, or a feeling of friendship towards my students. So I wasn't intending in any way anything I did to be upsetting to her. And I understand now that she has the boundaries in perhaps a different place to some of the other students. And I have no wish to cross those boundaries at all. But I just want to make sure that...
And can you be honestly regretful of having crossed those boundaries?
Well, of course I'm regretful that she's upset.
And can you go then to the next step in the sense of giving, in some way, apologizing for that invasion?
Well, I'm sorry if I crossed your boundaries that I didn't know about them. I mean, what else can I say? But I'm very, very leery of crossing them again inadvertently and being back in the same situation.
Right.
This is what concerns me.
Okay, but then what it means then for you, I think, is two things, John. Is one, I mean, we've delineated some very clear things, and those are rather simple. No physical contact, no invitations. Those I think, are relatively simple. We've suggested a third course of action that I think would make both of you more comfortable and enable both of you to move forward academically and put all of this stuff behind both of you, which would be that if you have a consultations outside of the normal hours, that you do it in a group basis.
Because it's outside of, not just the normal hours, outside of the classroom.
10 to 5. I think we've said 10 to 5.
In the absence of anybody else. This is the issue.
Well, you may feel that you would not want for a while until you can get more greater clarity about these things. You may not want to meet with Irene one-on-one behind a closed door. That's okay. There are lots of places.
Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Lots of places you can meet publicly in an academic setting, in a sense, and still discuss academic things. Or, alternatively, you can begin to arrange a situation where more than one student excuse me, is present during an academic discussion. I mean, I did that all the time because I always felt that one could generate more ideas with more exploration.
Would this be a male student or a female student, or where would we
Does it matter?
I don't know. Does it matter?
Does it matter to you, Irene?
Oh, why would it matter?
Has to be obviously be somebody fairly independent, I would think.
Why? That person doesn't know. They're not there for any other reason than to participate in the academic discussion.
I don't want them to know about
They're
this.
not monitors.
They're not there to be a watchdog.
They're not watching you, and they're not watching Irene. They're participating in an academic discussion.
But if she, then later on I cross these boundaries, and then she makes an allegation later on, I cross them inadvertently, and she makes another allegation later on, I want somebody to be able to see whether these things did happen or didn't happen.
Well, that you don't need to alert people to say, I want you to join in this academic discussion so that if I'm accused of some form of harassment, you can then prove to me that I didn't.
No, we don't
I don't
need to
think
say
you
that.
don't need to say that,
No,
do you?
we don't need to say
What
that,
we
no.
need to say is that we need to have, for your comfort and for your comfort, we need to have a third person there, maybe able to review it. You may review it jointly 3-6 months from down the pike. You may want to come back and talk to me about it 3-6 months down the pike, and in a sense of knowing that you don't need that, in which case you can move to the one-on-one. But in the next period, it would seem to me to be very useful just to enlarge the numbers in the academic discussion from 2 to 3 or even 4, for no other purpose than to give you both a sense of comfort so that you're not worrying about the discussions we've had today when you're discussing some major environmental issue tomorrow.
How do we get over this looking business that she was talking about, that I look at her in some strange way?
I think you have to be aware of it, number one. You have to be aware of it, number one. And you have to be aware that it's not an attempt to cross the boundary, number two. You both have to work on it. You've both got to have some shift in your perceptions about it. And if you're aware of it, and therefore play it out differently during the lecture, and if you're aware about it and redefine it from leering to some other form, then it doesn't exist.
I mean, I'm not out to get it, Professor Brown. I'm not going to go around looking for things.
Okay, well, that's what it seemed to me, that you were sort of out to get me. And I must say that's how I perceived it at the start of all this.
Does it seem that now?
Well, I've got a bit more understanding of where.
Okay. All right.
No, I thought she was a nice student, and she's a good student, and I had a lot of regret that this took place. But
I'm still a nice person.
I understand now that what she's saying has a lot more genuineness to it than I perceived before. I thought that they were a lot of wild allegations just trying to get me for some reason, and I didn't know why. And so I understand now with this boundary business that it's
all right.
Has been of concern to her, but hopefully she understands that there was nothing more intended by it than was on the surface, and that it should have been taken at face value.
Okay. So let's proceed under that general understanding, right? We know what the basic understandings are. We're going to draw them rather sharply. We may allow them to become a little blurred later on when everybody gets back to a sense of
So do you want to come back
comfort.
and review this in 6 months?
You don't have to make that decision now, but certainly my office is available to you. Okay?
I'd feel comfortable coming back.
And how are we going to deal with this? There's something that she feels that there's a crossing over in the meantime.
If you both agree, I will then report to the Vice President that you two have reached an agreement, and that neither of you want it to go any further, that you're both satisfied with the agreement, and that you want to get on with your academic lives.
All right.
And I'll just tell you. I guess I just need to feel that I can tell you.
Well, I'm comfortable with that. If you tell me, then I'm quite prepared to accept that.
Good.
And not be offended or think less of me.
Great.
Yeah, no, I've always thought highly of you, and I'm sure I will do in the future too. But I do want to know what troubles you, so that we don't do this inadvertently in the future.
You want to know, and you're willing to hear, and you are willing to say. Good. All right, so if you need me, you just give me a buzz and we can set an appointment. If you don't need me, that's perfectly okay also. You'll decide that in terms of how it works out. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.